Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Big Blue Avenue. I'm your host, Tom Scavetta, joined alongside my co-host, Hank Indictor, and Sam Cardona. Hank, Sam, how are we doing tonight? Sam, I actually want to start with you. You have some very exciting news to share with our fans.
I do, and I'm very excited to tell everyone that on Tuesday night, I got engaged to my 9-year long boyfriend, and I'm very excited about it. And apparently, these guys found out while they were live on a show via Tom's girlfriend, which is very funny to me. I was gonna wait and tell you guys myself, but it got ahead of me. So yeah, it's very exciting news. Oh, thank you.
Congratulations, Sam.
Thank you.
Awesome news. Hank, how are you doing tonight? That might be a tough one to top, but
You know what? I'm not even going to try to top that. I'm doing pretty good. And hey, one thing we can all be happy about, 7-2. I mean, hey, does everyone remember the win total that I had for the Giants before the season?
Pretty sure you had 7 games. Yeah.
You guys were both correct. It was 7.
Yeah. Look at that. Now, if they lost every single game, then you'd be dead. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Says, congrats. Quickly here, folks, reminder to check us out on all of our social media. You can see scrolling across our ticker below. And this episode is presented by BetUS. You can sign up with our promo code below there at join125 if you like sports betting. So, Giants beating the Houston Texans 24-16, improving to 7-2 on the season. And my gosh, I was very happy about this game. Sam, what was your key takeaway from this game?
I would say that, first of all, this was a great game, and I'm happy that we won. I was a little nervous because I was like, I didn't know how this was going to end up, but our defense is immaculate. I am so thrilled with the way that this played out because, I mean, I was kind of comparing this game to how they played against the Eagles on that Thursday night game. And the Texans gave at the time, undefeated Eagles a run for their money. And I feel like in this game, we were very in control. And, it seems like the score might not show that in one way or another, but our defense really held it down. And that was my big key takeaway.
Yeah, I agree. Before we get to Hank here, I mean, Micah McFadden and Jalen Smith, the new starting inside linebackers, flourished. Dane Belton, first career interception, stepping in for Xavier McKinney, flourished. Really outstanding performance, Hank. What was your key takeaway?
My key takeaway was this was the Giants' first game in a situation where we pretty much expect them to win. And while I don't want to say that they passed with flying colors, I think the more important part was they got the win. They're now 7-2. And you know what? Beyond that, they also had some lucky breaks go their way in terms of division rivals losing. But back to the game for a second. Yeah, I would agree. I think the Giants were pretty much in control for the most part. I mean, other than some self-inflicted mistakes that kind of kept the Texans in the game, there was never really a doubt in my mind that the Giants were going to win. And I think once Darius Slayton caught that big touchdown, you pretty much felt confident the rest of the way. And I have a feeling he's going to keep having some big games, and he's going to have a big role down the stretch too.
He's really starting to trend back towards his 2019 form, which is great to see. We also heard this week that Saquon would like to be a Giant for life. That's awesome to hear. Fabian Moreau and Adoree Jackson had outstanding games, and the Giants are only the second team in NFL history to win 7+ games in 9 games and one receiver or fewer with 200+ receiving yards. Hank, I think you put that there.
Yes, I did. I saw that on Twitter actually not long ago.
I mean, that's just incredible in itself. You look at what Daniel Jones did in this game, 4 incompletions, 2 of them were drops by Kenny Golladay. If I'm Joe Schoen, I save the $6.7 million this offseason and cut him. After the season's done, cut Kenny Golladay. I'm sorry. I know the holidays are coming, but it's not going to be a good one for Galladay.
You know what? It's not the Galladays though, so it's okay.
Right.
I was waiting for that pun.
Shout out Yo Elvis for tuning into the stream. 27-24 Giants. I'm assuming you're making your prediction for the Lions game, which we'll get into in just a moment. And folks, before we get into that, I want to remind you all, if you want to comment throughout the live stream tonight, you're more than happy. But we already had one major announcement.
Oh, yeah.
Our second major announcement is this. Former New York Giants safety and Super Bowl champion Antoine Bethea will be joining the show tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern to talk New York Football Giants with us. A little bit on his career. He'll be joined by his producer, Tone Gordon, who happens to be a Detroit Lions fan. So this all works out perfectly, but we're pumped. We're fired up. And that's part of the reason why we got to rip through this recap. So, Sam, take it away. Who is our Week 10 New York Giants Player of the Week?
Our Week 10 Giants Player of the Week is Sexy Dexy. Dexter Lawrence is our Player of the Week this week. So Dexter Lawrence already has 5 sacks this season, which is not only a career high, but is a team high as well. In Week 10, he had 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass deflected, and 1 quarterback hurry, and 9 pressures. And 9 pressures was the most by a player over 320 pounds in the PFF era since 2006, which is a really cool information there. Drew a holding penalty that voided a touchdown pass from Mills to Cooks. In 2022, he has 33 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 pass deflected, and 16 quarterback hurries and 92 PFF grade, 4th highest defensive player in the NFL, a 91.1 PFF defense grade, the second among inside defensive linemen, a 78.7 PFF run defense grade, which is 6th, and a 91.6 PFF pass grade, 2nd among inside defensive linemen. So obviously Dexter Lawrence helped us win this game. And like I said earlier, this defense was spectacular, not only in this game, but this entire year. So he is our Player of the Week.
It just seems like Brian Daboll gets the most out of all his players. You know, I hear a lot of Giants fans making excuses why Daniel Jones is playing this well, but if you're going to say that about him, you should say the same thing about Dexter Lawrence. You should say the same thing about Julian Love, right? How well has Dexter Lawrence played this year? He's played like a top 2-3 defensive tackle in the league. Outside of Aaron Donald, I struggle to come up with a defensive tackle that's playing better than him right now. Hank, I don't know about you. I can't think of anybody.
Yeah,
Not even Dalvin Tomlinson, who we all adored.
I know. I love Dalvin Tomlinson. It definitely sucked to see him go. And the only other one I could think of, maybe Micah Parsons, but it's really slim pickings at this point.
And Sam, you mentioned something important about his weight.
Yes.
He's fierce pass rusher. Very excited to see his development. And also Leonard Williams getting healthy too. But as we dive into our Week 11 transactions here, folks, Henry Mundu signed off the practice squad to the 53-man roster. I thought he had a decent game. Rodarius Williams activated off injured reserve. Devery Hamilton was waived and eventually got re-signed to the practice squad. Justin Lane was waived and claimed by Andy Hopper's Chicago Bears. Will Holden was terminated from the practice squad. And the Giants signed veteran defensive lineman Vernon Butler to their practice squad. And I want to talk about this guy. He's a former Buffalo Bill. He's also a former Carolina Panther. He was a first-round draft pick back in 2016, many moons ago. Had 11 tackles on 11 games for the Bills last year. So now the Giants have one open spot on their 53-man roster. And, hey, I also want to shout out Alex Bachmans for signing with the Houston Texans. Good for him. Really good for him.
Yeah,
I was sad he didn't make the team.
Yeah, he was one of the players who were, I guess you could say, was a survivor from that thin receiver core we had back in 2020. Good for him that he got picked up, but yeah, it would have been nice to see him try to have an impact on this Giants team. But I guess it wasn't meant to be.
It really wasn't. But I'm happy for him. Speaking of which, we just played the Houston Texans. Any final thoughts on this Houston Texans game? I thought they controlled the ball well. Time of possession was great. Daniel Jones looked solid, and they pretty much ran Saquon into the ground. This is the game plan that we all expected, no?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had a career high of carries in this game. 30 something, over 32 carries, I know for sure. So I mean, Saquon looked fantastic, and like we said earlier, Tom, it's exciting that he wants to stay on this team. And I just want to mention that we have a better record than the Buffalo Bills right now, which is very, very, very impressive. But yeah, I mean, overall, this game was great. And like I said, we controlled it the entire time. There was never a time throughout this game that I was like, ooh, maybe. Like, I felt very confident throughout the entire game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But speaking of which, let's move on to week 11, where we are playing the Detroit Lions. Lions lead the all-time series 24-21-1. The Lions have won the last two meetings in 2017 and 2019, and former Giants tight end Dan Campbell is now the head coach for the Detroit Lions. And Sam, I forget, Sam or Hank, one of you mentioned this, but Brian Dable knows Dan Campbell pretty well.
It was me. Yeah, I sent that graphic in the chat just because it was amazing. Just also, Dan Campbell just seems like a crazy guy in a good way. Like, he seems very dedicated to his team, but he's very energetic. So in an interview, apparently Brian Dable was getting interviewed, or he was interviewing him, and Dan Campbell was just running around, smacking walls, throwing chairs, like being just a psychotic person. And Brian Dable said it was a very quote unquote entertaining interview, which is just very funny to picture the scene.
Yeah, I'm very happy for Dan Campbell, but I won't be too happy if they come away with a victory this week. Detroit's coming off a crazy come-from-behind win over the Chicago Bears, 31-30 at Soldier Field. That was their first road win of the season and their second win in a row after starting off 1-6. Granted, in that 1-6, in that game against Miami where they fell to 1-6, they were in that game up until the very end. So that needs to be noticed, and it's because of Jared Goff and that offense. They continue to score points in bunches, Hank. 236 passing yards. Jared Goff, a 116 QB rating. Jamal Williams had a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't know who the hell is going to guard this guy for the Giants this week. 10 catches for 119 yards. The rookie D-end, Aiden Hutchinson, 8 tackles and a sack. Julian Okwara had 2 sacks for Detroit. Jeff Okudah also had the pick 6 in that game. He's a good young corner. Lions were 5 for 11 on third down in that game, and they were outrushed by the Bears 258-95. Lions giving up over 7 yards a run. They have the second worst run defense in the NFL. So I expect to see the Giants use a similar strategy that they've been using the last couple of weeks. But here's what concerns me about the Lions, guys. Only 2 penalties and no turnovers.
The Lions are like, I feel like their record does not indicate how good of a team they actually are. Like, I early in the season on my own personal YouTube channel predicted that the Lions were going to be second overall in this division behind the Packers. And like that just, I mean, it's gone up in flames since then. But the Lions really, I mean, we saw them in the beginning of the season. They were putting up 30, 35, 40, 45 points a game. Like, they know how to get things on the board. And it just so happens that their defense is just really terrible at not doing that for the other team. So they say, I'm a little worried about the Lions. And like I said, they're very good at putting points on the board.
Absolutely. And comment here from Larry Johnson. What's up, y'all? Unfortunately, I got y'all winning by a touchdown this weekend. Shake my head. Larry, the Cowboys fan. Hey, I'm happy. I'm real happy that his Cowboys lost this weekend.
Oh, that was
no shame in that.
Spectacular. The Eagles lost. The Cowboys lost. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Larry, former defensive back at the University of New Haven. Larry, if you're watching, we're having a former NFL safety come on the show in about 15 minutes, and Antoine Bethea, 20th all-time leading tackler in NFL history. So you're going to want to catch that for sure. Lions are like us, always in close games, but we find ways to win. Except it's the other way around.
Except that was us last year. Now we're
Yeah.
actually winning the games.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the Lions definitely had some games where I thought they should have won. I thought, Tom, you're probably going to not like that I'm saying this, but I thought they should have beaten the Vikings in that game. And unfortunately, that kind of resulted in a bad coaching decision from Dan Campbell. But, that's something to discuss for another day. I still think he's pretty much has that team playing as hard as they can week in and week out. I do wish, though, he would do a little bit better on his in-game management, but hopefully that's not the case this week. Just wanted to let us be clear right there.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. But let's get to our keys to the game here. Sam, what's your first key to the game for the Lions, for the Giants, in order to beat the Detroit Lions?
I mean, this will also tie into my player to watch for this week. Stopping the run, because I know people have been talking about DeAndre Swift, but Jamal Williams is so good. Like, he is very, very good, and he gets into the end zone and gets points on the board. So definitely making sure to stop the run. And I'll just reiterate this. The offensive line has been protecting Jones in such a good way. Like, he only had 3 sacks, I think, this past game, and he was able to get the ball down the field. So I won't say that's, it is a key to the game, but they've been listening to us. So they've been doing a good job with that.
Hank, how about you?
Yeah, I think that one of my big keys to the game, I would have to say, is to definitely pressure Goff, because, look, make no mistake, I think he's definitely doing a little bit better under Dan Campbell, but that's another guy that if you put a lot of pressure on him, and this is something that I saw when he was with the LA Rams, he's not going to have a great game.
Yeah, I think pressuring Jared Goff is definitely key. Only pressured on 21% of his snaps last week. Giants' pass defense is really good. They've given up under 60% completion percentage to opposing QBs this year. 20 sacks with a 45.5 blitz percentage. Dexter Lawrence and Big Cat have combined for 54 pressures, and the Giants' defense is tied for the league lead in 10 fumble recoveries. So I definitely agree with pressuring Goff. We got to Davis Mills last week, and we saw what happened. Sam's point to stopping the run. Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, and Penei Sewell, those are all rock-solid offensive linemen. Leo and Dexter will be busy. Giants have given up 5.5 yards per carry to running backs this season. But for me, it's run first. Lions struggle against the run. I think, and a lot of people don't get this when it comes to the Giants offense this year. They say that they're playing to Daniel Jones' strengths. That's incorrect. They're playing to the entire offensive strengths. The offensive line is much better at run blocking than it is pass blocking, which is why you don't see Daniel Jones dropping back 30 to 40 times. Right. I personally think Jones would be throwing the ball a lot more if he had better pass protection offensive linemen, if Evan Neal was fully healthy, if we had Shane Lemieux back, or if we had a 2019 Kenny Golladay again. But we don't have that. So for me, run right at Aleem McNeil, run right at Isaiah Boggs. I don't know if you want to test Jeff Okudah too much. He has 5 passes defended and an interception. Andy Hopper's guy, safety Kirby Joseph out of Illinois, 2 picks on the season. I think if the Giants could control the time of possession, win this football game, Giants are ranked 4th in TOP in the entire NFL. Keep Goff off the field. We know what that offense could do. They've scored 30 points in 4 games this season. 30 points or more, that is. Tied for most in the league. We were emphasizing how dangerous their offense is. Their defense is the polar opposite, guys. They've given up 24 or more in 8 of the 9 games that they've played.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. It really is.
It is. And that's what I was mentioning before, just the fact that the offense will put points on the board, but if you can basically jump on the fact that the defense is really not that great, you can 100% put just as many points on the board.
Absolutely. Noah Deibler stopping in, saying can't stay for long, fellas, but had to drop in for at least a sec. The pride of Savannah, Georgia. I knew he was going to say that. Antoine Bethea is from Savannah, Georgia. Fun fact.
Of course. Of course. Noah always finds a way to bring it back to Georgia.
See, maybe I planned that in my
Yeah.
head. Trying
Him,
to,
he loves his Georgia Bulldogs. He loves his Falcons, although
yeah,
he probably is very disgruntled about them. But
yep.
he also, of course, loves his Atlanta Braves. So, yep, it's true.
Let's get to our players to watch. By the way, we are blowing through the script here. Sam, give me a player or two to watch from each team and why.
So, like I said earlier with stopping the run, Jamal Williams is definitely someone I'm going to be keeping my eye on. And this is going to be, I feel like, a very run heavy game in general on both sides of the ball. But Jamal Williams is someone who has stepped up big, big, big time for the Lions. And he is just huge red zone, a guy that he could just make his way right through, just get right in there, get 6 points up on the board. Um, 604 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns, 67.1 yards per gain. Like, he's just an incredible person. So I think that Jamal Williams is definitely one. And the other one I'm going to say it for us, for the Giants, is going to be Darius Slayton, who like killed the game last week. Like, he did great. And I feel like he's finally coming into that wide receiver one role that we mentioned weeks ago about him having to fill in. And I think that he's doing a really good job. I mean, he had that incredible catch in the first quarter, like right over the middle. He had that amazing touchdown. I'm really excited to see what else Darius Slayton can do, especially against this weak defense.
Absolutely. Hank, how about you?
I am going to have to go with Aiden Hutchinson, who was their pick in the NFL draft. And hey, I mean, that was a good story. You know, you picked a local guy, star from Michigan, and so far he's doing pretty well. He's got 28 tackles, 5.5 sacks on the season, 4 of those tackled for a loss, and then even an interception to boot. So I think the Giants' offensive line will probably have their hands full in defending him. So I'm going to definitely go with him. But for the New York Giants, I think my player of the week, or player to watch rather, actually it is the player of the week. Let's go with Sexy Dexy.
That's a good one. Dexter Lawrence leads the team in sacks, really good, stuffing the run. I like Sam's pick with Darius Slayton too, 5 big plays. I think Andrew Thomas is going to be key going blocking against Aiden Hutchinson. I think that'll be very important for us. Just 9 total pressures all season, still no sacks through 9 games. It's incredible. That's not the life of an NFL tackle. He's not living that life. He's living like beyond that. Daniel Jones for me, though, that's my player. 153 QBR last week, career high. He leads the NFL. He has the longest active streak of passes without an interception, 145 to be exact. He has not thrown an interception since week 3, which, if we all remember that, David Sills fell on his route against Dallas.
Right.
So I'll tell you, he's been a real gem this year. The touchdown passes are starting to come, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
2 touchdown passes last week, right? I thought he looked great. And just the 4 incompletions, 2 of them were drops from Kenny Golladay. So if you take those away, he only throws 2 incomplete passes. And also, I want to bring this up. Joe Judge actually backed up Daniel Jones after he got fired by the Giants. This news just came out yesterday saying that he had a lot of nice things to say about the guy. He said he's a leader and he got screwed by the coaching staff and the organization. And Joe Judge owes the Giants nothing. He owes the Giants nothing. And the fact that he came out and said this, I thought was very mature of him, because an ex-coach could easily bash the organization. He could have bashed John Mara, Steve Tisch, but he didn't. I think it speaks volumes about, and again, I'm not going to sit here and mention Joe Judge. You know, I haven't mentioned him at all this year, really, but I mean, I thought it was very nice of him to say.
For sure.
Yeah, and this doesn't surprise me, because I think Joe Judge knew all along that Daniel Jones wasn't really given a fair shake. And, you know, like I said, did Joe Judge do a poor job in his 2 years with the Giants? Yes, but did the Giants screw him over and not give him the luxuries that they gave to Brian Dable. Both can be true. Both
Right.
can be true.
For me, for Detroit, I think the biggest problem for me, obviously Aiden Hutchinson, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8th wide receiver ranked in PFF. But their best next weapon is Josh Reynolds. They did trade away TJ Hawkinson. For me, it's a combination between Goff and Brown because Goff has 42 plays of 20 plus yards this season, 4th most in the league. I think you got to throw DeAndre Swift in there as well. He's getting healthier. There's still a lot of players. Alex Anzalone leads them in tackles, 72 tackles on the year. Kirby Joseph too, Andy's guy. There's a lot of guys, but I'm going to say this. If I steal a player from the Lions, it's Frank Ragnow. It is 100% Frank Ragnow, and here's why. Not just because he has an epic beard like one of our guests backstage right now. Ragnow, 26 years old, one of the best centers in football, and he's still ascending. 4th rated center in PFF. He's a better run blocker than pass blocker, but I think he would be an upgrade over John Feliciano in both areas because this is nothing against Feliciano. He's a guard who converted to center.
Right.
Feliciano's natural position is guard, and Ragnow was named an All-Pro in 2020. So that's my guy.
I would have to pick Anzalone, honestly. I was thinking about, an offensive guy, but I really like Alex Anzalone. And I know our defense is really strong as it is, but having him in the middle linebacker position, I feel like would make us really great.
Oh, yeah, definitely. How about Kirby Jones? 38 tackles, 2 picks. Another good guy to watch out for on the Detroit Lions, I would say.
I agree. Those are all good picks for sure. I'm very excited to talk about that. And let's bring up our first. Tone, are you ready backstage? Give me a thumbs up if you are. Hey, here he is, Tone Gordon. Apologies.
How's it going?
Lions superfan. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your night.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're having a lot of fun. We're really excited to have you on and Antoine as well.
Yeah. I just shot him another email, so he should be good. So
I guess we'll get into the first question with you, talking about these Detroit Lions.
Definitely.
Sam,
we'll start with you here, actually. I think you have the first question for Tone.
Yes. Sorry, I was shuffling my papers. So, hi, Tone. How are you?
How's it going?
So I think one of the major things, obviously, surrounding a team is always the quarterback, and you guys obviously just got Jared Goff fairly recently. How are you feeling about him so far this season? Is it, up, down, left, right? Like, what are your feelings about him?
So it's interesting because he's the first time in a long time because we loved Matt Stafford so much. Like we were all ride or die Stafford fans. I don't love or hate the quarterback. It's like an odd pairing. Like I'm like he's good, but he's also like not great. I don't really ever feel like he's going to win us a game. I do feel like he can lose us a game. I know he's thrown an interception in like 66% of our games. In the games he hasn't thrown interceptions, we're 2-1. So if that tells you, the poor mistakes that he's making. But 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions this year. I think almost like 2,500 yards, pretty close to that. So he's getting, stats in, and he's moving the team. It's just whether or not he's going to lose us the game, but I don't ever really feel like he's going to win us the game. So the upside's not really ever there, it seems like. So I don't love that, but, coming from where we were at with Stafford, where it was like everything was chaotic, it doesn't ever feel like that at the back. It feels like we're out of the game early or we're in it late, but like we have a chance. So I guess if I had to rate it on like a 10 scale, it'd be like a 5. It's like, I don't love it, don't hate it.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
It's very fair.
Yeah, that's a fair answer.
It doesn't feel good, though. I'll tell you that. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Believe we have Antoine backstage. We will bring him up. Just a couple comments quickly here. Mike says, going to go watch Bills versus Browns in Detroit. Yeah, in Ford Field. Good evening, gentlemen. What a night to talk some football. And without further ado, we're going to introduce our guest for the evening who played in the NFL from 2016 to 2019 with the Indianapolis Colts, San Francisco 49ers, Arizona Cardinals, and New York Giants. He's also a Super Bowl champion as a rookie for the Colts, three-time Pro Bowler, Antoine Bethea. Antoine, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure.
How you doing, man? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Tone, what's good?
What's up? What's up, baby? What's up, baby? How's it going?
Good.
I first want to ask, how do you guys meet?
The internet, the magic of the internet.
Yeah, right.
Love that.
Crazy world.
Twitter.
Twitter, to be exact. Yeah. So the guys started the Man to Man Pod. I think they were episode 3 or 4. They were looking for clips or someone to do clips, and someone shot it my way, and I shot it out. Actually, AB is the one who got in touch with me, and then kind of felt like a good fit in a roundabout way. So I'm a Michigan kid, military brat though. My family settled in Virginia Beach, which is in the 757. And if you know anything about Antoine is the pride of the 757. So we had a little bit of a bond there, and then it's just kind of rolled ever since. And the roles expanded, and producing and editing and social media and all the fun stuff, and it just grows and grows. So
awesome. That's awesome that you guys met that way. And Antoine, thank you so much for joining. Sam, Hank, and myself, all big Giants fans. We definitely love to have you on here. Can you plug your Man-to-Man podcast with Darius Butler and how that got started?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, now, man, I think this is going on next year, next March or April, year 4?
Yeah.
Wow.
Year 4. Yep, year 4. Myself, Darius Butler, former teammates. We started it during the pandemic. You know, everybody had extra time on their hand during that time. So we started that. And really, as the title says, you know, the name of the show, Man to Man, you know, obviously both playing the defensive back position while we played, and, you know, a lot of man-to-man coverage, but then outside of that, off the field, just speak on man-to-man topics as fathers, as Black men in this world, and just current, you know, current topics, current issues that's going on in the world. So, you know, we're live Monday and Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can catch us, and again, we do a Saturday pick show where we pick, you know, who we think will win Sunday's matchup. So it's been a good time, man, and thank you to Tone for tapping in with us, man, and making our show what it is.
Yeah, it's always fun. I'll tell you what, it's been a blast learning the sport as a super fan, like, of the sport, learning even another level of it from just casual conversations. Me and AB had a 10-minute chat after the show today off air that, you know, I learned something from football wise every time. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And Antoine, can you talk about your experience getting to the NFL? You played for 14 years? Take us through that. It's a very long career, Super Bowl and those Pro Bowls.
Yeah, man. It was a journey, man. It's one of them things that I still to this day, you know, I got to pinch myself to, you know, really say, like, man, I was able to do that. You know, coming from Howard University, it's a HBCU. It's one of those small schools. Got drafted the 6th round, to 207th pick to the Indianapolis Colts, man. And during that time, you know, the Colts were rolling, you know, Peyton, Marvin Harrison, Coach Dungy, man. So for me as a young player, man, going into that building, it was an eye opener. Looking at all those future Hall of Famers, and just looking at how it was supposed to get done, and how lucky I was to be able to walk into a winning culture. A lot of times, you know, young players, you know, you walk into a building where the culture isn't there, and you have to find your way through as you navigate through the NFL. And sometimes, as we all know, NFL stands for not for long. So a lot of times you're not able, or you're not lucky enough to be able to find yourself in an organization that does it the right way on all parts. But for me, man, I was lucky to be able to get in an organization like that. I played there my first 8 years in the league. Won a Super Bowl, lost a Super Bowl, 2 Pro Bowls. And again, man, the coaches that I had, Coach Dungy, Coach Caldwell, Chuck Pagano, those guys were great guys, great coaches, but just wonderful human beings. You know what I mean? So besides the football aspect, we was able to come to work, and we were able to look at men that could lead you off the field as well, man. So again, man, was able to start for 8 years for the Indianapolis Colts, man, and it didn't end the way that I would hope. I envisioned me playing there much longer, but the business is the business. I went out to the Bay, went out to San Fran, man, played 3 years out there. I was able to get another Pro Bowl out there, but again, had a great time out there. Just the locker room and just meet new guys and being in a different setting. The Bay Area totally different than Midwest, Indianapolis, man. So it was a great time. It was a great time, and just experienced different things. And from there, 2 years in Arizona, and then my last year in New York. So my time in the league was exciting. I would say my first 8 years in Indy, made the playoffs 7 out of those 8. My first 7 years made the playoffs, and then after that, never seen the playoffs again, man. So it kind of gives you the two tales of what the NFL is like, man. But again, man, 14 years, I'm blessed, lucky, and enjoyed every moment of it.
Absolutely. That's really awesome. And what I'd really like to know is, all of us, we've never seen an been on an NFL field as a player before. What, as a former NFL safety, before the snap goes off, what is it like to kind of like survey the field? Like, what kind of things do you look for? And, as a player, how is it different than watching as a fan?
Oh, man. Shit, sure, we could be on here for an hour just but I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis, right? So typically you have your safety. We're kind of in charge as far as the personnel that the other team is in, right? So It could be 12 personnel where it's one running back and 2 tight ends, or it could be 11 personnel where it's 1 running back and 1 tight end. So that's kind of the first thing, right? So I'm looking on the sideline, or I'm looking in their huddle, seeing who's coming in and off the field, or I'm looking to my sideline because we'll have somebody dedicated to telling us what that personnel is. So I'm yelling that in the huddle. Hey, it's 12 personnel, right? So throughout the week, 12 personnel, and we're giving the down and distance, right? So all of these alerts should be telling you something, right? So it's 12 personnel, it's 2nd and long, or it's 3rd and 5, right? So that should be telling everybody in the huddle something, right? So it should situational football. So now the safety, I'm looking at the huddle, and they break the huddle. All right, it's a quarterback in shotgun, right? So if the quarterback is in shotgun, that's going to take away the play action. So this is just things that's going in my mind, right? So okay, it's a 2x1 set, 2x2 set. Okay, during the week, like what do they like to do out of a 2x2 set, right? Where are these receivers lined up at, right? Is the tight end off the ball? If the back is offset one side, is the tight end on the same side as the back, or is he on the opposite side? So these are the things that's kind of going in your mind. It's like, okay, well, what have I seen on film? What have I seen in practice that can give me a tip, or a tip of what the play is going to be? But then also we have to figure out on the defensive side of the ball, we have checks. So if it starts off in a 2x2 and they can motion over into a 3x1 set where it's 3 receivers on one side and 1 receiver on another side, I could be telling the back 7, hey, we need to be getting to another call. And then all in itself, everything could change. They might like to do something different in a 3x1 set. So now that's even before the ball is snapped. So all of those mental gymnastics are going on in your mind. And again, communication. We got to make sure everybody on the defensive side is on the same page, making sure if we do check it to a different call, that everybody's on the same page. And a lot of time that comes from your safety. Your linebacker, he will get up there and he will set the front where this side is the strength or the weakness. And he'll kind of control the big boys. But then on the back end, the safeties are kind of controlling the back seven. So we got to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then the ball is snapped. So now the ball is snapped. Now you're trying to read the route concepts. So you can go out there and make them play. So again, man, it's a lot of mental gymnastics before the snap and post snap. And you got to do that typically an average of, I would say, 50 to 60 times a game. So that's kind of what, a safety is kind of looking at during the game time.
That's awesome. And obviously, I imagine a lot goes into, being that last line of defense at times as well. We have a quick comment here from Brian saying, shout out to Coach Dungy. Lots of respect for the man down here in Tampa Bay. Kelly Duncan says, loved watching you play, Antoine.
Appreciate that.
Antoine, my question for you, as a Giants fan, in 2019, where you played with Big Blue, you were named the captain and started all 16 games, led the team in tackles. Can you talk about your experience with the Giants and what that was like playing for them?
First off, man, my brother, I got an older brother, and he's a huge Giants fan, right? So it made his day when I signed with the Giants, right? But that year was tough, man. That year was tough for me. Obviously coming to the Giants and coach the defensive coordinator James Betcher, man, I had a long relationship with him. He was on the coaching staff in Indy, in Arizona as well. So coming in, knowing the defense. But that year was a long year. We weren't playing well as a team. I don't think I played my best ball either. And I knew for myself, it was either that year or the following year that it was probably going to be my last year. But I would say, man, I had a great time with the guys. The locker room was great. But again, we're going and we're playing the game to get wins and losses. So didn't get many wins, man. So it was a tough year. Obviously coming to a historic franchise. The front office was great. Again, like I said, the locker room was great. Guys were great. But when you're not getting a lot of wins, and when you were a vet, like I said, it was my 14th year. It was a long year for me. But I enjoyed my time in Jersey and going into the city as well. But as far as football, man, it was a tough year.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of your former teammates. Obviously, we know still remaining from that team are Dexter Lawrence, who has been absolutely outstanding this year, Leonard Williams, and Julian Love, who I've also really become impressed with. As a former safety, can you talk about how Love's game has grown and developed since his rookie year in 2019 all the way up until now?
Yeah, man. 2019, when he was a rookie, you can tell he had what it took to become one of those top safeties in the league. Just as far as instincts on the ball, being a playmaker, just in practice, punching the ball out. So you can tell he was a playmaker and he understood the game. And playing that safety position, it's about getting those reps. I think just football in general is about getting the reps. The more reps you get, the more comfortable you are in your in doing your job. And he's been doing that. Obviously has that C on his chest now. A captain. And he's out there making plays. He's a ball hawk, making plays on the ball. And one thing you like about Julian is that you can put him on different places on your defense. You can play him close to the line. You can play him in the post, and he has coverage skills. So his game is going to continue to evolve the more that he plays. I'm excited to see his growth.
Definitely. Yeah, we love Julian Love on this show. We're a big fan of him, and he's really been impressing us this year.
Day 3 pick.
Um,
Day 3 picks, you guys.
So what I'd love to know is, obviously you've played for many different teams, but Giants in particular, what do you feel like you're expecting from this current Giants team now that we're in the second half of the season? Like, do you have this momentum of going up still, or do you think that they're going to start to decline?
Man, the way they are playing, I feel like it's conducive to them to be successful in the later part of this year. Because again, talk about all the time on our show, like for you to be successful in November and December, you got to be good in the trenches and you got to be able to run the ball, right? And I think that's they've been doing that pretty well. You know, up front on the defensive side and offensive side, they've been pretty good. And then Saquon is like Saquon of old. You know what I mean? He's the running attack is there. So that's a good formula to have success. Again, though, you know, you got to go out there and you got to play ball. So if they can continue to do the things that they've been doing first half of the season and just grow on that, I think they have a good shot. And then obviously Philly losing, you know, they sit in the driver's seat. All they got to do is control what they can control, and that's go out there, play good ball, and get wins.
Absolutely. We have a fan question here for you, Antoine.
Okay.
This might be a little interesting one. What would you pick as your favorite play of your career? This was asked by a fellow Georgia native.
My favorite, man. I would say, man, my only pick six in San Fran against Phillip Rivers. That was my one and only pick six. So that's one of the plays that sticks out for me personally.
Awesome. And we have another question here from Kelly. Who is the most interesting teammate you've ever had?
Interesting.
Like that one.
Yeah.
Oh man. Interesting teammate. What's my guy's name? You good with history, Tone? He went to Ole Miss, played D-line. He had a twin brother.
What team did you play with?
Yeah, younger brother. He played with Ole Miss.
What team did you play on with him?
Arizona.
Arizona. I'm drawing a blank too. I'm gonna Google it real quick. I'll help you out.
Cardinals. You were there for a couple of years.
D-line.
Right?
Yeah, he played D-line. It's gonna come to me.
This is we do have a couple more if you guys
It's a tough last name, isn't it? It's like Ngakwe.
Ngakwe, something like that.
Robert
Nkemdiche.
Yeah, that's
Robert Nkemdiche. I would say he was the most interesting teammate that I've had.
Awesome. Another question here. This one's coming from Garth from Florida. AB, did you get to know Mike Hart during your time in Indy? He's a small town Western New York guy who was there behind Edgerrin James at running back for the Colts.
Yeah. Me and Mike, we played on the team together. Edgerrin was gone at that time when Mike got there. It was Joseph Adai who was there, but now Mike Hart, Western NY legend, a Michigan Wolverine legend. So yeah, Mike Hart, man, he did his thing when he came down to the Colts.
That's awesome. And one more here before we get to a couple questions for you, Tone. Don't worry, Tone. We got plenty of,
we didn't forget about you.
For you as well.
Of course not.
Mr. Detroit Lions there. Another one from Garth. Who is the toughest quarterback you played against in your career? Maybe a guy who was really good pre-snap, making adjustments, or maybe disguising where he threw the ball.
I would say Tom Brady. You know, a lot of good quarterbacks, you know what I mean? But Tom Brady, a vet, it's not too much that he hasn't seen as a quarterback. So it was really tough to really fool him. You know, obviously, you know, you could get him once or twice, but for the most part, he was going to know where the defense was going to be at. He was going to be able to, you know, get his guys in the right situation and, you know, threw good balls, man. So I would say, you know, TB12 was one of them quarterbacks.
Fun fact, AB is one of 8 guys tied for the lead for most interceptions against Tom Brady. I know he won't brag on himself. But
wow.
Another fun fact, he is 20th on the all-time NFL tackles list in NFL history. I think
get him in the Hall of Fame.
I'm not going to look at my notes. I'm thinking the number 1,334.
Oh, close.
Is that right? Or is it off?
You won off 1,333.
Ah, okay.
So close.
I believe the actual actually, AB, I believe the NFL actual count gives you 1334. So
Oh yeah,
so
I'll take it.
picked up an
Yeah.
extra one.
Well, I'll tell you what, if we're playing by Price is Right rules, I think Tom gets the extra $500.
Yeah.
All
Love
right,
that.
Sam, back to you.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Lions, Tone. Let's get into it. So obviously DeAndre Swift was someone that you guys were really relying on, but Jamal Williams has stepped up to the plate big time. Like I'm actually a real big fan of him. I love watching him play. I love watching him speak, honestly. He's wonderful. If DeAndre Swift starts to get healthy and make his way back into the field, do you want Jamal Williams to still take a primary role, or would you rather have Swift come back?
Give me Jamal Williams all day. I'm still salty. DeAndre Swift lost a game his first time ever. Dropped a ball in the end zone. Would have been a win for us, but he dropped one. I'm still salty on that. But I think Jamal Williams gives you a little bit more. He's got 4 games this year, I think, of 2 touchdowns each. So 4 2-touchdown games. He's a game changer. He can catch the ball too if he has to out of the back. He's explosive. And he's on pace for like 1,200 yards already. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't typically have a good running game in Detroit. It's been since Barry's gone. It's been a little hit or miss. I'd actually be interested in hearing AB kind of like break down like the difference between those 2 running backs, having seen them a little bit, and how, because that would be your role sort of as a safety, right? AB, to kind of cover up a little bit of the running back.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely. Like you said, man, the Detroit's run game has improved drastically this year. So they are going to see like 8 in the box sometimes. So that would be my role as a safety coming down. But like to your point, man, Jamal Williams, man, he runs behind his pass, and not to say Swift doesn't, but I just like the tenacity that Jamal that he runs with. You know, a lot of times just falling forward, and that's what you like to see in your backs, especially when it gets to that 3rd and 4th quarter.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Hank, we'll go to you here next.
Yeah, no. So I think the one guy on the Lions that really scares me, at least if we're talking about on the offensive side of the ball, and to be honest, I'd probably consider stealing him if given the option. That would be Amon-Ra St. Brown. How are opposing defenses going to be able to stop that guy?
I mean, I feel like I honestly don't know. He's so good, and he's just so consistent when he's in there too. Like when he's not injured, he's just like he's a bulldog. Like he's getting the ball, he's making plays. This one I'm really for sure going to defer to AB on, since that's your expertise. So how do you stop? If you were the safety this week for the Giants, how are you attacking that?
I mean, he's the type of player that you roll your coverage to, right? Where wherever he is, you make sure you have 4 eyes on him at all times, because like you said, Tony is a playmaker. Like he's a guy that can change the game. So if I was a defensive coordinator, it's one of those things like, wherever he is, this is where we're going to focus our coverage too. So you can do that multiple ways on 3rd down. You can bring a safety in the box and you can double as far as like a robber. So it's a lot of different ways where you can kind of disguise it, where you're not giving him the same looks to make him have to see different coverages as he getting into his routes, and obviously disguising some things for the quarterback as well. But to your point, Tony, he is a dog, man. He is a playmaker, so you definitely want to have multiple eyes on him to I don't know if you can stop him, but at least limit his touches.
Slow him down.
Yeah, slow him down.
Dory will have his hands full for sure. But just toning into one again, this is a question to both of you. With Hawkinson gone, obviously he was the complementary piece. Who else on the offense needs to step up in this passing game for Detroit outside of St. Brown? Who's that next guy that you're looking at on this roster? Like, hey, he really has to make some plays, because obviously we know outside of him, they're somewhat, I wouldn't say limited, but the options aren't as wealthy as some other teams or across the NFL.
They have a guy. So interestingly enough, he's got 3+ receptions in each of the last 6 games. He's got 5, I think, in 2 of those. So But he stepped up. Caleb Raymond, sorry, wrote it down because I was gonna say Reynolds. I knew it, but Caleb Raymond, he's the guy I think that needs to take the next step to be a secondary piece to St. Brown. I think he's done a pretty good job. 302 yards this year. Like I said, 3+ catches in each of the last 6 games. He's really come on these last couple of weeks. So I think he's the guy that probably has to take up that work that Hawkinson's dropped off.
I'm gonna go to a totally different position. I'm gonna say Goff, man. I think Jared Goff has to do some things to be able to get people into that role. You know, find somebody that he's confident with, who can pick up some of that slack. So I'm gonna leave my hat and say Jared Goff.
Good pick.
I love, Tom mentioned TJ Hawkinson before. Obviously that's very fresh, very new to not have him on your team. What was your reaction to that? I was baffled that they sent him to the Vikings of all teams.
I don't like it. I don't, especially for what we got for him. Not really a great. I mean, I think we got a 2nd and 3rd pick, and I think we gave him in the conditional 4th or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really feel like what you get for like a guy that a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. I mean, like, especially sending him in division to. I mean, hopefully, the Vikings are playing good. So if we're not going to win it this year, if they go get it, cool. But
yeah,
I liked Hawkinson. I thought he played really well. I didn't see the point in getting rid of him unless he somehow was like, hey, I'm not re-signing here or something like that. Then I guess maybe you got to get what you can get for him. But not pumped to see him go, especially after the history of seeing favorites leave, and Hawkinson was. I mean, Barry left early, retired. Calvin, it's just kind of Stafford left and won a title, so not fun. But what can you do, right? I guess like it's worked out. We've won 2 games since he's been gone. So,
well, I mean, what makes it worse for me though is the fact that you drafted him so high and then to trade him like 2 years later, or 3 years later rather. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And some of this is I actually wonder. This will be a callback to man-to-man episode we had. We had Eric Ebron on. I don't know why I can't say his name tonight. And he said basically the structure of the Lions when he came in, he was so young that like there was no structure. There's no veteran leadership basically there to like kind of like structure people along to build it up. And maybe that's what we had here. And I don't know, like it sucks because we have dropped some very high picks on tight ends and they haven't really panned out. So it's a little rough.
Yeah, Antoine, anything you wanted to add on that about the Hawkinson trade? Were you surprised by that at all? Do you think Detroit got like a fair return, or what was your thoughts?
I don't think we'll know until those draft picks. They have those draft picks, and we can look back and say, "Hey, this is what we got in the Hawkinson trade." But initially, definitely was surprised. But most surprising was him going to Minnesota. In the division. So that was surprising. But hey, the business of the NFL is ugly, man. It's ugly.
My friend from work, Larry Johnson. Not the Chiefs running back. My friend Larry says, great podcast for a bunch of Giants fans. LOL, you'll have a good one. Well, I know at least 3 of us are. I'm not going to speak for the 2 on the bottom here, but I know Tone is a Lions fan. I'll just say that. But thank you, Larry, for the comment. Larry played defensive back at the University of New Haven as well. So a former collegiate defensive back like you, Antoine. So
Shout out Larry.
Yeah. Larry's a cool guy. Next question, Tone. Put you on the spot here. What's the biggest strength you've seen out of Aiden Hutchinson this year, and where does he still need to learn?
So it'll be the thing. The strength will be the thing that like, and I'm going to reference AB here. Whenever I pull film and just have watching the sport, my wife's a giant Colts fan, so I watched a lot of AB. AB was always around the ball, always around the play. That's, I think, the biggest strength for Aiden Hutchinson right now. He's always near the play. He's always near the play, making the play. The play he made in the Packers game, obviously, he's near the ball. He makes that play. He falls into a sack. He seems to always be around the play. And vice versa. The biggest weakness is I think sometimes he erratically is doing so, like not in control. Sometimes he's like just takes a little bit too much time to get near the play. So it's like it's a double-edged sword for that. But I will take the plays where he's making them. If he can figure out a way, I guess, to harness that. And I don't know if that's something you can do. I think that maybe that's just a playing style. But sometimes it seems it's a little bit. He's like, oh, it's going to be a run. I'm gonna, go where I think I'm going to go, and he's out of position. But he seems to make himself back into the play just with his athleticism. So maybe more pre-snap or something like that, I would guess.
Yeah.
So I think if we're talking about the Lions, I think the next guy I got to talk about is someone that Tom and I are definitely big fans of, just because, after all, I guess you could call him a Giants legend. He was our tight end during that 2000 Super Bowl run. But obviously, I am, of course, talking about the wild and crazy man, Dan Campbell. And I personally enjoyed watching him on Hard Knocks this past season. He seems like a guy you just would love to run through a brick wall through and like have fun for. And it seems like they're playing very competitive football for him. However, in my honest opinion, I've also seen a lot of moments where he's made some very horrible in-game decisions. And I think the Vikings game is a big example, because I don't think I would have kicked that field goal with 50 plus yards when I could have either punted it and given the Vikings a long drive, or just like gone for it anyways, just to try to clean up the game clock. But that's neither here nor there. My question for you is, do you feel that Dan Campbell has gotten a good amount out of the squad, and do you see him being there as the head coach for long term?
I think he's gotten a good amount out of the guys who are willing to be Dan Campbell type of guys, I guess I should say. I think he has a certain style. I think he wants to come in and kind of play the way he wants to play, with aggressiveness and all that kind of stuff. And I think the guys that bought in, I think, have succeeded with him in a small scale. I think there's still a lot of like continual success that needs to happen, but there's been little flashes of it working. So from that, I think he has. I don't know that it's turned into results yet. And whether or not it will, that's kind of the big question. And that's kind of the big question of whether or not it'll be the long-term head coach. For me, and I know we've had this conversation on the man-to-man pod, a successful season, I think, is probably like some 8 wins. I don't know that that's realistic this year. And then being playoff contenders next year. Like, I think that's got to be, or drafting a quarterback or picking up a new quarterback once Goff's contract's over, and making a continual progression towards being playoff contenders. AB says anything less than playoffs is not a good season, though. So,
you're not wrong.
Yeah. So it's tough. It's tough though. But yeah, I think the other thing AB does say though all the time is you got to give coaches time, and I think for him, I think he should at least have through next season. Without even having to worry about it, and then reevaluate then. But I think if he gets 5-6 wins here this year, and you're looking at being a potential playoff contender next year or close, just outside, then I think you re-up him and you let him continue to build. The worst thing we did was get rid of Caldwell. He was our best coach. We should have kept him. I think we got too used to having some successful seasons, and we had a little drop back, and we were like, nope, can't do that. And then we've been terrible ever since. So I think you got to give him time.
I think you kind of answered what I was going to ask, which was, realistically, how long do you think until the Lions really pull it together and become playoff contender? Like, do you think it'll happen by next year?
Realistically, I don't know, to be honest with. Like, if I was like putting money down, whether or not the Lions will make the playoffs next year, I think there's a lot of off-season things that need to happen. I think Jared Goff is a good piece, but I don't think he's the guy. I think we need to get. So I guess that's where it goes. Is like if you draft a guy high, then you got to give that guy a little bit of space to like grow into the role. But if you bring in like a decent vet that's like got some skills, then I think you're ready. Like kind of like the Colts are doing right now. Like, you bring in you should be in the playoffs every year. You bring in a guy who's shown he can succeed at quarterback, and like that's so it's two different avenues, I think. But either way, I mean, if Dan Campbell has us going up, I think you kind of let him run that next 2-3 years of a rookie quarterback or whatnot, and see where it leads you. How you feel about that, AB, as a player? Like, how would you feel if you were year 6, 7, 8 on that like trajectory?
I mean, I think that's how the funny. Like, it's just a funny space to be in because, again, you do have to give a coach time to build a culture. You know what I mean? And sometimes that time that you're trying to build that culture and you're trying to put your footprint on the team, those years could be ugly. And if the owner or GM is not willing to have that patience with you, so you to go through that process, it'll be tough because now it's like, okay, we're bringing a new coach in. And the new coach is trying to do the same thing. You know what I mean? So, like, when would the tide change? So, to your point, I definitely feel like Dan Campbell is, like, putting his footprint on this team. It's just a matter of fact where, if they finish below 500 this year, I think he'll definitely start the year next year, but it will be a situation where, okay, like, how's the team looking next year come midpoint or first, I'll say midpoint of the season, and then you can make a decision. But it's tough. It's tough, especially when you're getting rid of one of your top playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. You're not making it easier for the coach, man. So it's tough being a coach in this league, man, especially if you don't get a job where you have a lot of talent on that roster, or the front office is going to give you ample amount of time to do what you need to do.
And I will say low key, like, we've had a rough schedule. Like, if you look at the standings right now, so outside of the 2 blowouts to the Cowboys and the Patriots, we lost by 3 to the Eagles, 4 to the Vikings, 3 to the Seahawks, and 4 to the Dolphins. So, I mean, all those are top teams in their respective divisions. I mean, it's not been an easy road, and we've been playing tight. So.
Yeah, you guys have definitely shown signs of improvement. Before we get to the next question, folks, just to reset the scene, live tonight here with Detroit Lions superfan Tone Gordon and former NFL player, Super Bowl champion Antoine Bethea. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Hank, we'll get to your next question.
All right, so Tone, this one's definitely for you, but of course, AB, as always, you're more than welcome to chime in there as well. Can you give me one player under the radar on each side of the ball for the Detroit Lions?
So I mentioned my my offensive guy earlier, Caleb Raymond. I think he's the under the radar guy. Been consistently getting targets and consistently pulling in catches. So he's actually had so like I said, 3 catches in each of the last 6 games, 5 catches in 2 of those. He's had longs in those games of 21, 20, 20, 43, and 21. So he's put up some big plays in those receptions as well. Defensive side of the ball, Kirby Joseph. He was really the reason why we won the Packers game. I mean, honestly, like 3 PBUs, 2 interceptions, like 10 tackles. But he's been consistently getting better in the last couple of weeks as well. So.
That's good stuff, Tone. I'm a ride with Tone on that.
Yeah, definitely good answers, guys. I do want to ask Tone, if you had to steal a player from the Giants, since you're a Lions fan, I'm going to ask you this directly. Who would it be and why? Earlier, I chose Frank Ragnow because, again, I'm a big offensive line guy. And I think he'd be an upgrade over John Feliciano, who I think is more of a guard. But who would you steal from the Giants?
I'm gonna. I'll be honest. I was a sort of neutral on this player, and AB has made me like a fan of his by just like talking him up. But Daniel Jones, if I could replace Jared Goff with Daniel Jones, I think the thing that Goff could do to help us more is run the ball. If you gave us Daniel Jones's running ability, plus he's basically similar in what he can do in the passing game as Goff, I think we might have 2-3 more wins this year. So I would take Daniel Jones in a heartbeat.
Danny Dimes.
We have to ask you now, AB. What's your thoughts on Daniel Jones? You're number 4. Obviously, you were teammates with him for his rookie year. Him and Eli in the quarterback room back then. What have you seen from him from year 1 until now? What have you liked from him?
Man, I think Danny Dimes, man, like his rookie year, he would, when we were in camp, like he would make throws, man, where I'm like, man, this young fella is putting the ball where only his receivers can get the ball, right? Obviously, from the shoulders up, cerebral wise, he has it, right? I would say, I think anybody would say, even he would say, like the knock on him was, protecting the ball, right? The turnovers, but even with that, he was still playing some solid ball, but the turnovers were in crucial moments, crucial times. And, my thing was like, man, if you can correct this, man, like he's going to be a hell of a player. And this year, having Saquon back, the run game has opened some things up. You got Darius Slayton, they came in the same year. Darius Slayton is getting involved more. Wan'Dale Robinson, man, rookie, man, he's coming out making some plays, man. So DJ, man, I think sky's the limit for him. He can continue to grow. Coach Dayball, he's come in and he's catering this offense to his strengths. And I think sky's the limit for him. They need to pay the man.
For sure. We all think the same thing.
Pay the man.
Yes, Sam, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Your feelings for Daniel Jones and what you're thinking?
I've been a Daniel Jones believer since they picked him 6th overall in the draft. I've been standing by that man for quite a number of years and been patiently waiting for him to break out because we knew he could, and now he finally has the right coaching staff at least, and he doesn't even have the right tools on the field to do it, and he's doing it. So I agree wholeheartedly. I think that he should definitely get a contract by the end of the year.
Oh, it goes without saying, but I pretty much second that opinion. I mean, Daniel Jones is pretty much a leader. I mean, look, Tom, we pretty much discussed it earlier, but let me reiterate this once again. When your old coach, who was much maligned, had been like thrown under the bus, fairly or not, make no mistake, I don't think that he did a great job during the past 2 years, that he goes out on the record and says that Daniel Jones deserved a lot better. Doesn't throw his ownership under the bus, doesn't throw the previous GM under the bus. All he does is say he believed in Daniel Jones all along. That speaks volumes of how our quarterback is, although it also speaks volumes of the character of said coach. But I digress. You look at a lot of the games the Giants have won, there's no way they're 7-2 without Daniel Jones. Like five come from behind wins, simply put, does not happen with a quarterback that stinks.
Yeah, Hank and Sam, any off-the-book questions you want to ask AB or Tone here before we get into our little game predictions here, wrap this one up?
I mean, no more questions, but just both appreciate you guys coming on and chatting with us about the NFL and the Lions and everything. It's been great talking to you guys.
I got a random question. Can I ask AB a random question?
Go
for
it.
Let's hear it.
AB, is that Giants jersey from a specific game, or is that just behind you? Is that like
The one on this side.
I think that's from the Cowboys. Our Cowboys.
the ice out jerseys where you picked off Dak?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah.
I did see something. I think it was on Wikipedia, possibly, that Antoine actually has a forced fumble off of Kenny Golladay when he played for the Lions back in week 9 or week 8 of 2019. So,
Oh, yeah?
yeah,
That is a fun
I saw
fact.
that fun fact, and obviously Kenny Golladay is I think he's on the Giants. I don't even know. I haven't seen
Hey,
him.
thanks
so.
for taking that, guys. Thanks for taking that one.
Yeah, can you want him back? You can have him.
No, thanks.
Yeah, I think AB. I actually have one for you here, and it's a question. Detroit Lions have one starter on their team that was a teammate of yours in 2019 with the Giants. Do you know who that is? Little trivia question here.
You said an offensive guy?
Offensive guy. Well, yeah, it is an offensive guy. So it'd be one of 11 guys. He played on the Giants in 2019, not the full season. I think he got cut and signed with another practice squad, but he starts for the Lions.
He's an offensive lineman.
Undrafted rookie. I think Tone might know who it is.
I'm actually racking my brain. I was trying to figure out. I was like,
Really?
yeah. It's been a long day though, but
He went to SMU.
why am I'm spacing it.
Evan Brown.
Oh.
I'm offensive lineman.
Evan Brown. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
I think he's starting right guard, right? Because Vitai's hurt, so he's filled in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good question.
He's been doing good too.
Yeah. AB, I guess one last thing Sam, Hank, and I all wanted to collaboratively ask you is if you can plug in I know you do charity work, right? I'm trying to think. The Bethea Family Foundation. Can you explain that and plug that in and what that's about for the listeners who may not know?
Yeah. So 2010, we started off as the Safe Covers Foundation, but we changed the name to the Bethea Family Foundation, and we focus on continuing education. Giving the kids the resources that they lack to help them, further their education after high school, whether that's a 2-year, 4-year institution, or even them finding a trade that they like. And obviously, when I played throughout the league, we would help the respective cities that I played in, whether turkey drives, Christmas giveaways, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, now we focus mainly in my hometown that I grew up in, Newport News, Virginia, helping the inner city kids. So we've been doing it for over a decade, man. We love giving back, having an impact on the people in the community, man. So if you want to make a donation, you go to AntoineBethea.com. The Bethea Family Foundation.
That's awesome.
We'll definitely.
And I will say, from getting to know Antoine over the last couple of years, super genuine dude. Like, you couldn't ask for a more genuine guy. Also, I'm just gonna big him up again. 2-time Multi-Paint Man of the Year. Just heads up.
Appreciate it.
That's
Appreciate
right.
it.
2 times too. Wow.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Excellent accolades, and you've been a blast, a pleasure to talk to tonight. Hank, Sam, I'll give you final words here. I think I can say it on behalf of all of us, but both of you guys, it's been awesome. I know, Tone, we've had a relationship for over a year now. That's been awesome. We met you on a draft show, and AB tonight. I mean, we're like Giants history buffs. Like we love this team in and out. And even though you played for the Colts for a long time, we all love watching the Colts because of that name Manning, and then seeing you come to the Giants that last year, 2019, was a true blessing to have you back there for us. So
I appreciate that. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate y'all having me on the show.
Yeah, I definitely remember that 06 Colts team very well. That was a great win for you guys in that Super Bowl. Definitely. And I remember even at 10 years old, I was definitely very happy for Peyton Manning to see him getting that first ring. And I remember thinking, hey, it's only going to be a matter of time before Eli gets one. Now, if you had told me that it would take beating an undefeated Patriots team to get that first ring, I don't know that I would have necessarily believed it at the time, but doesn't matter. He got not one, but 2 rings. And those are 2 of the greatest sports memories that I don't want to necessarily sound like I'm speaking for Tom and Sam, but those are some of the greatest sports memories that we all have. And I definitely enjoyed watching you play when you were with the Indianapolis Colts too. So AB, I want to thank you for joining, and Tone, it was good talking some Detroit Lions with you. And I'm glad I got to ask you about Dan Campbell, who, let's be honest, say what you want about his decisions. I love that guy. I can't help it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, these guys said it all. Thank you guys so much.
Of course,
All right.
of course.
Thanks for having
Antoine
us.
Bethea, Tone Gordon, Man to Man podcast. Make sure to go check them out. Also, Tone hosts his own podcast called Off the Rails with Tone and Jem. Make sure to go check that out as well. I'll make sure to post the links in the descriptions when we post the YouTube video up later this week. But gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for your time. The fans and us really appreciate it. And let's go Big Blue.
Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate that.
Have a good one.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That was Tone Gordon, Antoine Bethea, ladies and gentlemen.
That was
The
awesome.
Super Bowl champion for the Indianapolis Colts, former All-Pro. Yeah, it has been very cool.
Very cool.
AB and Tone. Actually, I don't know if AB was an All-Pro at any point. I might have to fact check that one. But yeah, quickly here. For me at least, I just feel like that might have been that's up there for one of the best interviews that we've ever done. So that was definitely a pleasure. But time to predict this. Hank, I'll start with you. Who do you got? Week 11.
This is going to be a very close game, and I'm not going to lie, this game actually scares me more so than the Houston Texans game did, because the reason I say this is because at least the Lions have been competitive in their games for the most part. I think the only really exception would be the New England game, and that was another game where Dan Campbell made a really weird head-scratching decision, but that's obviously neither here nor there. I think the Lions are definitely going to make things very interesting. However, ultimately, I'm going to say this is going to be fourth quarter comeback number 6 for Daniel Jones. Giants are going to win this one by the skin of their teeth. I'm going to say 27-26.
It's a good one,
Uh-huh.
Hank. It's a good
1 point.
1 point.
A classic
Sam.
Giant victory is what I'm going to call it.
I also think that the Giants are going to win this game. It's going to be close. I'm very nervous just about, how well the Lions have competed, like I said earlier. But I'm going to go 28-24 New York Giants. I'm giving them a little bit more leeway than 1 point, but I agree with Hank. I think it's going to be very, very close.
Yeah, well, it looks like Evan Neal is on track to play right now, which is good news. He was, I think, limited today
Nice.
with the knee injury, but Wandale did not practice due to a hamstring, and Daniel Bellinger is likely to be out until at least week 12 with the eye injury. So with that being said, I have the Giants winning this game, but again, I'm only picking the Giants because obviously they're the better football team and they've been winning games against these types of teams all year long. So it's hard to go against that grain at this time. But I think the Lions are going to score points. I think they're going to score 23 to be exact. I think the Giants score 26 though, 26-23, my final score. Big Blue. Yeah. So
Nice.
that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Folks, really appreciate you all tuning in tonight with the comments. Adam Rothschild, Larry Johnson, Adam Perdomo, Garth Michael Patrick, Kelly Duncan, Brian McArdle, Mike DeSanto, you name it. Ben Cruz as well. I mean, this has been a blast, an absolute blast. Sam, Hank, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
I think we said it all.
This was a lot of fun, man. Like I knew one day we were going to get a former Giant. However, I did not think that would happen in year 3 of the existence of this podcast. So that was very cool to get some insight and hear some takes from a former NFL player. And of course, Tone Gordon also did an excellent job in sharing his opinions on his beloved Detroit Lions. But most importantly, as usual, Tom and Sam, I had a blast once again doing this show with you guys. And as usual, I'm looking forward to next week. And by the way, as a matter of fact, I just bought my ticket for Sunday, so I am super hyped up. Let's go.
Have fun, Hank. I'll be watching from home.
We'll do.
Looking forward. Hopefully, you bring us some good luck. On behalf of Antoine Bethea, Tone Gordon, Sam Cardona, Hank and Dichter, I'm Tom Scavetta saying good night. Without further ado, let's go Big Blue.